Aeonium Arboreum and other Aeonium are popular and hardy garden succulents. The rosette leaf arrangement and tall growing habit make it particularly attractive. Aeonium Arboreum is also very easy to propagate, and one plant can soon become many. It can, in fact, be so prolific that it is considered a minor environmental weed in parts of Australia. In this video we'll have a closer look at how and when to best propagate Aeonium Arboreum and how to care for it. Aeonium Arboreum and other Aeonium species and cultivars can be propagated by cuttings and seed. In my experience, no Aeonium will propagate from leaf. The leaves of Aeonium are very likely to die when taken off the plant. Unfortunately, this is one of those succulents that cannot propagate from leaf no matter how hard you try. Seeds can also be tricky and may not always germinate, but cuttings are extremely easy to propagate. In fact, they are so easy they'll do all the hard work for you. A branch broke off from this large plant on a windy day a couple of weeks ago and started rooting in the ground and on the path on its own. The aerial roots have nearly made it into the soil below. And where the stalk is in contact with the ground, roots have already started to grow as well. The great thing about Aeonium Arboreum is that even huge chunks like this can easily be propagated. I just stick them straight in the garden or large pots. Smaller cuttings can be propagated as well. As long as there are 2 or other rows of leaves and long enough stalk to cut through, it is good to propagate. Any fresh cuttings should be left to dry for at least a day so the wound has time to heal. Fresh wounds can be gateways for diseases. This little guy can be planted straight back into the garden or a pot. Even small offsets like this can be propagated. This one plant can be multiplied into about 5 and it will keep producing new offsets, and the offsets will have offsets, and so on. It truly is super easy to reproduce and very generous. Here you can see a new generation of offsets forming already. To plant cuttings straight in the garden, find big enough patch that will allow the Aeonium to grow and spread. Now make a hole deep enough for the stalk and compact the soil around it so the cutting stays in place. It will take about 2 to 3 weeks for roots to show, and about a year, depending on where in the world you are, before this little one is as big as the plant I took it off. If you'd like to plant in a pot, use succulent potting mix or other well-draining mix. Simply make a hole in the middle and pop the cutting in. Although this little plant isn't a type of Aeonium, the process is the same across the board. Once the cuttings have been planted, it is very likely they will start drooping for a couple of weeks and can lose a few leaves, just like this large branch cutting I've planted a few days ago. This is completely normal and may last until the root system has developed and established a bit more. To help the cuttings establish faster, water when the soil or potting mix start drying out, but do not let them sit in soggy soil. If cuttings are not watered, they can dry out too much and die. Aeonium Arboreum and all other Aeonium grow in the cool season, unlike most succulents. It is therefore best to propagate them during this time. Aeonium will actively start growing towards the end of autumn through winter and until the end of spring. This adaptation works well in their native Canary Islands, but may be a problem in other colder parts of the world. The cold season in the Canary Islands is actually quite balmy, and by growing and reproducing during the cooler weather, Aeonium will avoid trying to multiply where the weather is hot. But this can be a problem in other parts of the world where the climate is different. Aeonium, for instance, is not frost tolerant, and so propagating in winter may not work well, even if it's done in greenhouses or indoors. In my opinion, the best time to propagate Aeonium anywhere in the world is in spring. My nursery propagates thousands of Aeonium every year, and we do it all in the early spring. The Aeonium grow rapidly at this stage and send roots down in a couple of weeks. They then have all of the spring to establish and grow big enough root ball before going dormant in summer. Having said that, Aeonium Arboreum is likely to send roots even during its summer dormancy. There just won't be any additional growth happening until autumn. I've tried propagating Aeonium Arboreum in summer when I found broken off bits and would never do it intentionally. However, some Aeonium hybrids and cultivars such as Big Bang or Mardi Gras seem to have a hard time rooting during dormancy, and I have experienced unrooted cuttings just dying. It really is best to propagate Aeonium or any other plant during its natural growing season. Aeonium Arboreum is a tough plant suitable for gardens or large pots. As mentioned earlier, they are not very frost tolerant and are likely to die if frost settles on them, so garden may not be suitable in moderate climates. A very mild morning frost should be okay though. If you live in a climate with regular frost and snow in the cold season, Aeonium Arboreum can be growing in pots and brought indoors for the duration of the cold weather. If you opt to grow Aeonium Arboreum in a pot, keep in mind it is quite a large and rapidly growing plant. As a result, repotting or keeping in a large pot is beneficial. If an Aeonium becomes too big for its pot and root bound, it may start losing leaves and stop growing. Established plants are very hardy and will be able to deal with drought. However, Aeonium Arboreum enjoys regular watering and will grow bigger and faster when it has a good rain often. It will also tolerate rain and lots of it, but must not be planted in areas where water can pour for long periods. Waterlogged plants can rot. This succulent is best grown in a sunny position but will also grow in part shade. The best shape is achieved when Aeonium is grown in plenty of sun. Although Aeonium Arboreum can be brought inside the house to wait out the winter frost, it is not a great indoor plant. Without the sun, it is likely to stretch and eventually die. Aeonium Arboreum is susceptible to loads of pests, including the dreaded mealybugs and aphids. Check on the new leaves, especially during the growing season, as these pests can spread rapidly and love all the tender, fresh growth. All Aeonium are also monocarpic. This means that they die after flowering. But don't panic, only the flowering rosette dies. The rest of the plant continues to live on. When the flower cone starts to die and is cut off, new offsets should start forming around the cut. All in all, Aeonium Arboreum is a solid hardy succulent and ideal for beginners. It may not be good for leaf propagation, but it's incredibly easy to propagate from cuttings. And that's it for today. I hope this video was useful, and if you'd like to learn more about succulents, you can subscribe to our channel or visit succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you for watching.